Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Perfect Ideas. How do you treat your neighbors? So the way you treat your neighbors, or what is the relationship between you and your neighbors? We have various categories of neighbors. Your neighbor can be your kinsman, can be your other Muslims or non-Muslim. So Allah ordained in the glorious Quran, He said, worship Allah and don't associate anything with Him, and do good to parents, kinsfolk, could be relative, the poor, the neighbors who is near of kin, the neighbor who is a stranger, the companions by your side, the wayfarer, and also the slaves from your right hand that your right hand possesses. Allah does not like such as profound, boastful. So you can refer to Quran 4 verse 36. So after we worship Allah, you need to extend to the groups that are mentioned in Quran 4 verse 36. So we have classes of neighbors. They are in 3 categories. We have a relative neighbor, maybe your immediate neighbor. Neighbors are those people who lives near you, maybe the next plot or a few meters away, So one category is relative neighbor. So these type of neighbors have 3 rights over you: the right of being a kinman or a kinwoman, the right of neighbors, and also the right of being a Muslim. So 3. It's not a joke. So, and then we have Muslim neighbor. So the first one is their relatives, and the second one is any other Muslim neighbor. So these groups categories have 2 rights over you: the right of being a Muslim and the right of being a neighbor. And the third category is a non-Muslim. So the non-Muslim enjoys the right of being a neighbor only. Okay, so a non-Muslim enjoys a right of being a neighbor. There's no any relationship between you when it comes to religion, only a neighbor. So, and we have a hadith. Abdullah bin Umar came home once and found that his family members had slaughtered a sheep meat as a present, and has slaughtered a sheep meat as a present to the Jewish neighbor. And he said, for I heard Allah's messenger saying, Angel Jibreel continued to advise me to be kind to my neighbors until I thought that he was going to give him a share in inheritance. So it is that serious, you see. So you need to be good to your neighbors. We have a situation where some people, their neighbors, they don't even talk to each other for centuries. He or she is not safe from their hands or mouth. We have such people. So it is a grave sin. You have to be very careful. So if you find this information useful, you share with your neighbors and advise them. Those who mistreat their neighbors. There are those who are very abusive, They hurl insults. They collect darts and place on their doorsteps. There are very many. You know yourself and you know them. So there is a reference from the Holy Quran and the Hadith. So it is that serious. People have to be very careful on how they treat their neighbors. Okay, so causing inconvenience to your neighbors is against the belief of Islam. Okay, so if you are one of them that you are causing harm to your neighbor, stop it and repent. The Prophet said, by Allah he does not believe, 3 times. By Allah he does not believe, by Allah he does not. So the Sahabas asked, "No Messenger of Allah," he said, when they asked him, he said, the one whose neighbor is not safe from his harm. You see, so if you are mistreating your neighbor, you are abusing, you are hurling insults, you place darts on their doorsteps, know that you are not a believer. Your belief is in question mark. So it is high time you repent and seek guidance. Okay, there is another hadith. It says, do you know what are the rights of neighbors? They are as follows. If a neighbor seeks your help, extend to him or her. Okay, if a neighbor asks you for a loan, lend him a loan. So in this case, you need to focus on the 3 categories I've mentioned: the relative, the neighbor, the Muslim neighbor, and the non-Muslim neighbor. So all your neighbors, irrespective of religion, kinsmen, and not belonging to your religion, enjoy these services that have been mentioned in this hadith. Okay, so you have to be very careful. If a neighbor asks you a loan, lend him. I'm not talking about loan with interest. But loan means you borrow money or something. Mostly it is in form of monetary value. So if you lend 100 shilling, if you wish him or her to return for you, you should return 100, not on top of something else. These days, when you borrow something, the same person wants something in return. You see, that's a very bad behavior. Personally, I don't like it. Most people, they practice those kind of behaviors. So indecent, you borrow something, you want something in return. So it is against this hadith for you to do that. So if they ask for you something, lend them, give them period. If you want them to return, maybe you need to agree, but you need to extend that service to them. So if your neighbor becomes poor, then help him or her financially and attend to his poverty if you can. If your neighbor becomes poor, if your neighbor is happy on certain gain, and you need to congratulate them. If your neighbor is suffering a calamity, then offer him or her condolences. If your neighbor dies, then attend his or her funeral if you can. Do not raise your building over his building, so that he or she will not have access to sun exposure or wind passage. Do not bother your neighbor with the smell of your cooking unless you intend to offer him or her or some of the cooked. So this is a whole hadith. It's that serious. Take note. Even when the neighbors caused you harm, good behavior is advised. There was a situation, a man complained to Abdullah bin Abbas, and he said, my neighbor harms me and curses me. So he said to him, he disobeyed Allah in your affair, so go and obey Allah in his. So if a neighbor harms you, you are not supposed to harm. Because if your neighbor harms you or abuses you, they have disobeyed Allah. That's according to the hadiths. They cease to become a believer. You see, they cease to be a believer. So it means you should not also extend the same abuses, abuses or harm to them, because you will just become like them. That's what it means. So thanks for watching. If you find this information useful, kindly subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share with your friends and relatives. I know there is a very big challenge when it comes to maintaining a relationship with neighbors, even kinsmen, because these days people have embraced the way of Satan. You may even find your relative fighting you for no reason. You are out there hustling, seeking livelihood, but you are fought without. So don't fight back with no apparent reason. Someone can just call you, abuse you, or blame you, and you are in your own world hustling. You see, the same applies to some neighbors. They harm you, they place darts on your doorstep. So do not extend, do not, if you try to behave the way he or she behaves towards you, you become a disbeliever. So this it is very serious. You think you are a believer, but those small acts can make you a kafir also, you see. So people have to be very careful with their small thing, can take you to hellfire. You think it is just for fun. So people have to be very careful on how they act towards their neighbors. So with this few information, please share with your neighbors. Pass this information as far as to all Muslims, your neighbors, your relatives. You know, when you share these hadiths and Quran statements, you may help someone to get out from the situation they are in. And kindly subscribe. Bye for now.